The job interview that changed everything. Marcus Sterling adjusted his Italian silk tie as he stepped out of his Bentley. The morning sun glinting off the glass facade of Sterling Enterprises' 40-story headquarters. At 35, he had built an empire worth $3 billion. But success had come at a price he was only beginning to understand. The lobby buzzed with the usual morning energy when his assistant, Sarah, approached with an unusual expression. "Mr. Sterling, there's a young boy outside asking to see you about a job. Security tried to send him away, but he's been there since 6 a.m. He says it's urgent." Marcus frowned. A boy? How young? He had no time for games or publicity stunts. Maybe 10 or 11. He's very polite, sir, but insistent. He has a handwritten resume. Something in Sarah's tone made Marcus pause. In his world of corporate sharks and calculated moves, genuine persistence was rare. "Bring him to my office in 5 minutes." The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than usual as Marcus wondered what could drive a child to seek employment at a Fortune 500 company. He settled behind his mahogany desk, the city sprawling beneath him through floor-to-ceiling windows. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Sarah entered, followed by a small figure that made Marcus's breath catch. The boy was thin, with unruly dark hair, and eyes that seemed too serious for his young face. His clothes were clean but clearly second-hand, and he clutched a wrinkled piece of paper like a lifeline. "Good morning, sir," the boy said, his voice steady despite obvious nerves. "My name is David Chen. I'm here to apply for a job." Marcus found himself studying the child's face, noting the determined set of his jaw, the way he stood straight despite his small stature. There was something familiar about him that Marcus couldn't place. "David, I'm Marcus Sterling. Please sit down." Marcus gestured to the leather chair across from his desk. "Now you realize I run a technology company, not a lemonade stand, right?" David's face remained serious as he carefully placed his handwritten resume on the desk. "Yes, sir. I know you develop software for hospitals and schools. I researched your company at the library." Marcus picked up the paper, genuinely curious now. In a child's careful handwriting, David had listed his qualifications: excellent grades in math and science, experience helping elderly neighbors with their computers, and fluency in both English and Mandarin. "This is quite impressive, David," Marcus said, surprising himself with his sincerity. "But why do you need a job? Shouldn't you be focusing on school?" David's composure finally cracked slightly. "My mom, she's sick, really sick. The medicines are expensive and we're behind on rent. I know I'm young, but I'm smart and I learn fast. I just need a chance." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He leaned back in his chair, memories flooding back unbidden. 13 years ago, he had been a different person, younger, more reckless, less careful with hearts. There had been a woman named Lin Chen, a brilliant graduate student he had met at a conference in Beijing. Their brief but intense relationship had ended when Marcus chose his career over love, leaving China without looking back. "David," Marcus said carefully, "what's your mother's name?" "Lin Chen. She used to work as a translator before she got sick." The room seemed to tilt. Marcus gripped the edge of his desk, his mind racing through calculations, dates, possibilities. The boy's age, his mother's name, those familiar eyes that Marcus now realized were mirror images of his own. "Mr. Sterling?" David's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay?" Marcus forced himself to focus on the child, on his son. Because now he was certain. The timeline fit perfectly, and the resemblance was undeniable once he allowed himself to see it. "David, I need to ask you something very important. Do you know anything about your father?" The boy's face closed off, his shoulders hunching defensively. "Mom says he was a businessman who went away before I was born. She never talks about him much." Marcus felt his heart breaking and soaring simultaneously. 13 years of missed birthdays, first days of school, bedtime stories. 13 years of a son he never knew existed while he built his empire of glass and steel. "David, I want you to call your mother. Tell her Marcus Sterling wants to meet with her. Can you do that?" Confusion flickered across David's features. "But what about the job interview?" "The job interview is over," Marcus said softly. "But our conversation is just beginning." 2 hours later, Lin Chen sat in the same chair her son had occupied, though she looked far more fragile. Illness had taken its toll, but she was still beautiful, still possessed of the sharp intelligence that had first attracted Marcus all those years ago. "You should have told me," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Lynn's chin lifted defiantly despite her weakness. "What would you have done? Abandoned your dreams to play house? You made it clear where your priorities were." I don't know what I would have done, but I deserved the chance to try." They talked for hours while David waited in the outer office, Sarah keeping him occupied with company tours and snacks. Lynn explained the struggles of the past 13 years, raising David alone while battling a rare autoimmune disease that had progressively worsened. The medical bills had drained their savings, and pride had prevented her from reaching out to Marcus. "He's brilliant," Lynn said, love and worry warring in her voice. "Too smart for his own good sometimes. He figured out how bad our situation is and decided to fix it himself. That's why he came here." Marcus looked through the glass wall separating his office from the outer area, where David was earnestly asking Sarah about database management systems. "He's our son," he said wonderingly. "How did I not know?" "Because you never asked," Lynn replied simply. "You left, Marcus. I was pregnant and scared, and you left." The accusation stung because it was true. Marcus had been so focused on his goals, so certain that emotional attachments would derail his ambitions, that he had never considered the consequences of his choices. The challenge now was figuring out how to build a relationship with a son who saw him as a stranger, how to help the woman he had once loved without making her feel like charity, and how to navigate this new reality without disrupting the carefully constructed walls of his corporate empire. Over the following weeks, Marcus threw himself into learning about David with the same intensity he had once applied to hostile takeovers. He discovered his son's love of chess and science fiction, his habit of reading 3 books simultaneously, and his fierce protectiveness toward his mother. David remained wary, treating their meetings like business appointments. When Marcus offered to move them to a better apartment, David asked pointed questions about the terms and conditions. When Marcus suggested private doctors for Lynn, David researched each physician's credentials. "He doesn't trust easily," Lynn explained during one of their coffee meetings. "He's learned that adults make promises they don't keep." The breakthrough came during a chess match in Marcus's office. David had been systematically dismantling Marcus's strategy when he suddenly looked up from the board. "Why didn't you want me?" The question was asked matter-of-factly, but Marcus could see the pain beneath his son's composure. Marcus set down his bishop, his throat tight. "I didn't know you existed, David. If I had known, would it have mattered? Mom says you were very focused on your business." The honesty of the question demanded an honest answer. "I don't know," Marcus admitted. "I was a different person then. I thought success meant sacrificing everything else. I was wrong." "Are you sorry you found out about me?" "Oh, David." Marcus came around the desk and knelt beside his son's chair. "Finding out about you is the best thing that's ever happened to me. You're not a complication or a problem to be solved. You're my son, and I'm so proud of who you are." For the first time since they had met, David's careful composure cracked. Tears spilled down his cheeks as 13 years of questions and hurt poured out. Marcus held his son as he cried, making silent promises to be better, to do better. The healing process was gradual for all of them. Marcus, 4-5, restructured his schedule to spend more time with David, teaching him about business while learning about the boy's dreams of becoming a doctor. He arranged for the best medical care for Lynn, not as an obligation, but as a commitment to the family he was learning to build. There were challenges: David's initial resentment, Lynn's struggle to accept help, Marcus's own learning curve about parenting. But slowly, tentatively, they began to forge connections. 6 months after that first meeting, Marcus stood before the board of directors of Sterling Enterprises with an announcement that shocked the corporate world. "I'm restructuring my role as CEO to allow for better work-life balance," he told the assembled executives. "I've recently discovered that success without family is just expensive loneliness." David, now a regular fixture in the office after school, had helped Marcus understand that building a business empire meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. The company would continue to thrive under Marcus's guidance, but it would no longer be his only priority. A year later, Marcus watched from the audience as David received an award for academic excellence. Lynn sat beside him, her health stabilized thanks to cutting-edge treatments, her hand warm in his. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For becoming the man I always knew you could be." That evening, as they walked through the park near their new home, a house Marcus had bought not for its prestige but for its proximity to David's school and the large backyard perfect for a swing set, David slipped his hand into Marcus's. "Dad," he said, the words still new and precious between them, "do you think everything happens for a reason?" Marcus squeezed his son's hand, thinking of all the twists of fate that had brought them together. A young boy's desperate courage, a mother's quiet strength, and a businessman's awakening heart. "I think we make our own reasons," Marcus replied. "And sometimes the best reasons come from the most unexpected places." As they reached home, Marcus realized that the most successful deal he had ever negotiated wasn't worth billions of dollars. It was worth something infinitely more precious, the chance to be a father to the son who had been brave enough to walk into his office and ask for a job, only to give his father the greatest gift of all. A second chance at love and family. The little boy who had asked for employment had instead offered Marcus something no amount of money could buy: the opportunity to discover that success without love was just another form of poverty, and that sometimes the most important meetings happen when you least expect them. David never did get that job at Sterling Enterprises, but he had given his father something far more valuable. He had given him a reason to redefine what success truly meant. What did you think of this story? Have you ever had a moment that completely changed your perspective on what truly matters in life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your own stories of unexpected connections and second chances. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to Billionaire in Love for more inspiring stories about love, family, and the moments that change everything. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that could change your day, or maybe even your life.